You after this? Okay, let me see. It looks like we're good. Looks like we're good. Awesome.
Okay, we are live on YouTube. It is 4:02. And I would call to order a special governing body meeting. The date is December the 1st. And let's do our regular order of business. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Abeyta. Then the salute to the New Mexico flag led by Councilor Rivera, and an invocation led by Councilor Cassett Sanchez, followed by remembrances among ourselves. So please rise as you are able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship amongst united cultures.
This being Thanksgiving week, or just after Thanksgiving week, I've been taking a lot of time to think about what I am grateful for. And I have been thinking a lot about this council, this governing body, and the gratitude that I feel towards each one of you who always come to the table with passion and with insight and with creativity as we work together to try to navigate these remarkable, extraordinary, and challenging times. And as we move forward tonight and continue trying to plug the holes that we constantly see in our city, I want to give thanks to each of you and to every member of our staff who has been working diligently, and to the many members of our community. So tonight, I look forward to moving forward together as we continue to look forward to solutions together, both as a governing body, as a city, and as a community in Santa Fe. I do have a remembrance, so I will go ahead and start off. Friday was the 1-year anniversary of the death of my younger cousin. In Jewish tradition, we usually would have an unveiling of the headstone. And of course, unfortunately, we were not able to do that this year due to COVID. So I am thinking today of my cousin Ariella and the incredible spirit that she was and the passion that she brought to the world. And to my family that was not able to take part in the traditions that help us grieve and help us move forward after we have lost someone. And it reminds me of how many people are also facing that now through COVID and for reasons that people are passing not due to COVID. And so my heart goes out to those individuals as well who are not able to take part in the normal traditions that we hold so dear that help us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others who wish to have a remembrance at this time?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. Councilor Vihel-Koppler, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would like to express condolences to the family of Eric Holmes and his wife, Edith Holmes. Eric lost his father, of course, her father-in-law, and his name was Gilbert Holmes. And I just want to express deep condolences to them, and as well to our city clerk, Yolanda Vihel, and her husband, Gilbert Holmes was their uncle. So I express my condolences to them. And I'd like to remember my mother, Margaret Vihel. Today's her birthday. She would have been 93. She was a spectacular woman, and many things she taught me I carry with me every day of my life, and I miss her terribly. And I know she's up there in heaven doing a lot of really good things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Councilor, go ahead.
Yeah, also,
1 second. We'll let Councilor Rivera go and then Councilor Garcia next, if it's okay.
thank you to the Holmes family as well. Edith was a longtime employee of the city, and same with Yolanda's husband, who retired from the city. So my condolences. They're a great family, so my condolences to them and the family, and just let them know we're all thinking about them.
Thank you. Counselor Garcia, your turn.
And just want to echo the same sentiments from my colleagues. Just wishing my condolences to the Holmes family. Mr. Holmes lived right down the street from me, and so I was able to grow up with him and his family being around. So just want to wish all of them well wishes, and just let them know that they're in our thoughts. And if there's anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilwoman Villarreal.
I'd be remiss not to send love and support to the people that have experienced loss in the form of suicide. There's been a few in the last few weeks, not directly to me, but people I know that have lost loved ones due to suicide. And I just wanted to acknowledge that and to let people know that to give each other hope and to let others know that there's support for them in some form, and just to make sure that we're supportive of people that we think might be doing okay, that may not, that are struggling or have been struggling from depression or other losses. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Now if there are others, let's take a minute and have a moment of silence for those who we are holding in our hearts, and for those who are suffering due to COVID-19 and this pandemic that is taking such a toll. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor Weber,
Present.
Councilor Vega,
Here.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez,
Here.
Councilor Garcia,
Present.
Councilor Lindell,
Here.
Councilor Rivera,
Here.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Here.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Here.
Councilor Villarreal.
Present.
You do have a quorum present, Mayor.
Thank you. Could we get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Councilor Vihel Coppler's moved to
Second.
approve the agenda, and Councilor Lindell has seconded. Is there discussion? Could the clerk please call the roll then?
Councilor Vega,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved.
Thank you. We have item number 7, and we'll start with 7A. Each of these requires a roll call vote. They are all discussion action items. Madam Clerk, if you could introduce us to item 7A, please.
Yes, this is a request to authorize the city manager to sign an amendment to the CARES Act funded contract with Family Independence Initiative to increase the contract in an amount up to $3 million to administer and provide direct economic relief to indigent city residents affected by COVID. And we have Kira Ochoa presenting.
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion from Councilor Romero Worth to approve this item and a second from Councilor Lindell. We do have staff here to answer questions. Discussion or questions, please. Councilor Garcia, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kara, quick question. Do we anticipate only the 3 million cap being hit? Or, I mean, I'm wondering why we landed at 3 million and not a number where if we can potentially spend up to 5 million instead of it having come back before the governing body, why not have it at a different cap?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Garcia, thanks for the question. We will not exceed the 3 million. It was sort of the outside high number that I would put in, given our timing and not knowing certain things, whether, for example, other funds from CARES Act from other departments would be reprogrammed into this or not. We're clear now that it's really the additional money that was barred in last time through the 392,000, as well as unused program funding in our child care voucher program, as well as unused funding in the regular Connect program. So we should be good at 3 million. In fact, we've already begun to process the first amendment for 850,000, which this body approved. And then we anticipate, at it coming in definitely well under 3 million for this second and final amendment in this FII contract.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. And just a big grateful thank you to you and your team and everybody else involved for helping to get this money out the door. I know it's a big effort, huge, and time is not on our side, so to speak. So thank you all for working diligently to get it in the hands of those most in need. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Weber, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be out of order, but I just wanted to thank the governing body for their condolences for the Holmes family. As many of you know, Edith worked in the Community Services Department for many, many years. And much of what we're able to do now, I think, for the community has to do with the good work that she put in giving us good structure. So appreciate those sentiments.
Thank you. Other questions or comments about this item? If there are no other discussion, could the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Councilor Cassidy Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Merrill-Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could read item 7B, please. Oops.
Yes, item 7B is request for approval of amendment number 1 to the New Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness Professional Services Agreement to increase compensation of CARES Act funding by $194,942 for a total contract amount of $556,169. And we have Alexander Ladd available for question.
Thank you.
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion from Councilor Romero Worth to approve it and from Councilor Lindell a second. We have Ms. Ladd here to answer questions or offer explanations for those who have a question. Please raise your hand and we'll get those to Alex. Anybody? If there's no questions, could the clerk please call the roll on this item?
Yes, Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Merrill-Worth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Cassidy Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion has been approved.
thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, item 7C is next.
Yes, this item is request for approval of an amendment to extend the time frame for closing of the Santa Fe Clay Building located at parcel F1 at 545 Camino de la Familia, Santa Fe Rail Yard, and to require the purchaser, Unicapital, to provide earnest money in the amount of $10,000, which will either remit to the city at the close or be applied to the purchase price if closing occurs before December 31st, 2020. We have Andrea Salazar and Rich Brown available for questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
I heard Councilor Romero Worth's motion and Councilor Lindell's second. There may be questions here. Yes, Councilor Vihil Coppler, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if in the purchase agreement for the March closing date, was there earnest money in escrow for that?
Mayor, Councilor Vihil Coppler, no, there was not money, earnest money in escrow.
So is there a reason why there wasn't?
We normally do not require earnest money in our transactions, or we haven't required that before. So that is the reason we did not have it in this previous purchase agreement.
Okay, so why are we collecting it now?
Mayor, Councilor, the reason behind the earnest money is in case they are unable to close as of December 31st. They wanted to offer earnest money as basically a condition for not closing and for obtaining the extension. So that was their request. And we accepted that because that means that if they're unable to close before the end of the year, we still get 10,000. If they do close, then it becomes part of the amount that they give us upon closing for the total amount.
The reason I ask is because, you know, in contracts, there's offer, acceptance, and consideration, which is the money. Now, earnest money solidifies a lot of things in a contract, and mostly it requires due diligence. And when one party fails, usually the buyer, to perform, then there's the risk of losing earnest money, which is mainly the impetus for performance. And I understand in the write-up, you know, the reasons behind this, but I'm a little bit surprised that we didn't have earnest money on the table. I mean, it is always the seller's prerogative, if they wish, to give back the earnest money, you know, depending on whatever circumstances, but not always. But mainly it's an impetus for the buyer to provide and get their due diligence done and in a timely manner by meeting deadlines. So, you know, I'm happy we're collecting the earnest money now, but I guess I don't particularly like the idea that if we have these large transactions, this one may not be as large as some that we're going to have in the future. I really believe that we do need to be having earnest money on the table for the reasons that I stated. So that is all. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Garcia, your hand is up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess I got a question that probably the community is wondering, just because they're might not be paying closely attention to this transaction. So if I'm not, so if you can correct me if I'm wrong, if the purchaser is not able to purchase the property by the date, then what happens is we keep $10,000 and we each go our separate ways. Is that how it works out?
Mayor, Councilor Garcia, that is correct.
Okay. And with that being said, then what would be the plans or intentions for the Santa Fe Clay building in the future? Would this potential buyer be able to come back and buy again? What would be the next steps?
Mayor, Councilor Garcia, the next steps would be potentially we would put the building back on the market for either lease or sale. But I think we would have to come to an agreement as to how we would move forward internally.
Okay. And I guess last question I have is in regards to the time invested we put into this project. Do you think we've invested more than $10,000 of city resources to try to facilitate this process? Whether it's, and I'm taking into account hours spent by staff and the potential dollar value. I know we don't have that built up, but you know, to Councilor Vihil Coppler's point, you know, I think it is a good idea to have earnest money, because if we spend an absorbent amount of time trying to get these deals out the door, and they don't come to fruition, then the city is at the end taking the resources, and we're in the hole for it. So I guess I'm just trying to wonder if, $10,000 covers the time and effort we put to try to facilitate this process.
Mayor, Councilor Garcia, Rich might be able to help answer this question a little more, but in terms of what we've done in between the date that the ordinance passed and the public hearing and today, there has been very little work other than communicating with the parties. So it hasn't been an exorbitant amount of work that's been expended. We've already done all the documents, mostly the due diligence. So this is really about the closing. And so during that time frame, sorry, go ahead.
But with that, Ms. Salazar, I would take into account the time taken before the ordinance passed, because that you can't discount that time and effort that went into getting the ordinance prepared and in front of the governing body. I think we really need to consider as a governing body and as a city looking into taking in these earnest monies, because we are putting in our time and effort. And if nothing comes to fruition, I don't want the city to extend those resources, especially in a time like now where we are in a budget deficit. So with that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for either of our staff people? Okay, if there are no other questions, could the clerk please call the roll on the item?
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Marworth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion has been approved.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to 7D. If Madam Clerk, you could read us into that.
Yes, this is a resolution extending the state of emergency as proclaimed by the mayor on November 30th, 2020 by 60 days pursuant to section 20-1.3C of Santa Fe City Code 1987. And we have Aaron McSherry available for questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second. Second.
I heard that from Councilor Cassett Sanchez. So Councilor Lindell made the motion. Discussion or questions about the resolution? Councilor
I
Vihel,
guess
then to you, Councilor Garcia. First, Councilor Vihel Coppler had her hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I have two questions. The first one is about the resolution itself and the timing. I'm not clear on the timing, and perhaps the city attorney could clarify. So we get an email today that says you signed the emergency proclamation, and then we now after are signing the resolution. So does one not relate to the other, or is there anything wrong with signing with not approving the resolution first and then you sign? Or I don't get it. I guess I should have asked this a long time ago.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Vihel Coppler, I can answer that. Thanks for the question. Basically, the way that our emergency powers ordinance works is that the mayor has the authority to proclaim an emergency. He's the only entity in the city that has that power, but he can only proclaim it for up to 3 days. And then the governing body can extend the proclamation for up to 60 days for this type of pandemic situation. It used to be only an extension for 7 days. And then early in the pandemic, we thought that would be a lot of extensions to have to put in place. That's what we did for the initial one. The initial emergency proclamation, I believe, was only extended for 3 days, for 7 days. In this case, just the timing, it's only a 1-day turnaround rather than a 3-day turnaround because we happened to have this meeting scheduled for today. I think the exact date of this meeting was not certain. because we were trying to work around other meetings of the governing body, like the quality of life tomorrow and finance yesterday and all of that. So it just happened to be one day after rather than exactly 3 days after. I think some of the other ones have fallen more exactly at the 3-day point, which is when the mayor's proclamation would have expired otherwise.
Okay, so thank you. So there's a 3-day window. Now, so do you tack on 3 days at the end of the 60 or is the 3 days counted within the 60?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Viejo-Koppler. So it just depends on when you extend. So because you only can extend for up to 60 days, it'll be 60 days from today.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is we got a lot of emails yesterday. At first I thought they were duplicates, but then they're not, I don't think. But can someone tell me how many COVID cases we have in the city now?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Viejo-Koppler, we only have county by county data, but according to the Department of Health, there's over 5,000 cases in the county.
Oh, I was meaning city employment. Because we got a bunch of emails yesterday.
Right. Mayor Weber, I don't have that information, but I believe those were each distinct employees, is my understanding.
Like one right after the other.
I think the city manager may be able to answer that question.
Mayor, Councilor Viejo-Koppler, yesterday you received 3 emails announcing cases. So as we alerted you all to last week, we've been doing individual notifications to the department, and beginning last week, perhaps it was the week before, we started doing all citywide notifications for a case. So yesterday you received 3. And they are individual. In some cases, there is one email and multiple listed, and then it just depends, because sometimes if we have a window within which to report. But yesterday there were 3 positive cases at the city of Santa Fe amongst employees.
Okay, thank you.
And I will be providing you all a weekly report as I did, so you see those numbers. But you're on the mass distribution that everyone gets in real time.
it just seemed like it was more. I could go, maybe my reporting, and maybe I'm getting two for one, I'm not sure, but there was more than 3, but I don't know what that is. I see
Okay,
Councilor Villarreal nodding her head, but do we have an overall, do you have an overall count of how many cases we have in city employment right now?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Viejo-Koppler, I do, but I do not have it at my fingertips. So if I can get my fingertips on it, I can answer that before the end of this meeting.
Okay, thank you. And so, I know it's almost inevitable, but I just want to make sure that we are doing everything we can in city government to ensure that safe practices are followed, because as you know, there's several times I've reported, and sometimes I think, I've just called others because there's been reports of non-compliance within city government. And so I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent this as much as possible, and that supervisors are enforcing it, and that supervisors themselves are taking it seriously. Because I think one communication I read said, if you feel like there's non-compliance, take it to your supervisor. Well, what if your supervisor is the one who doesn't think it's a big deal? Then there was no advice on, going above that person's head. And I think that's what's scaring employees. They don't want to go above their supervisor. And I know that in at least a couple of instances. So somehow there's got to be a way that we monitor this, and that we have employees feel free to go out of their chain of command, because I think this is really serious. And obviously you all think so.
Mayor, Councilor Viejo-Koppler, absolutely. I think there is nothing that we take more seriously. I will say one thing that we can use everyone's help with that I think has worked really well. We did 2 separate HR, HR hours in which we walked through all of the policies and procedures and employees can ask questions, raise issues. Everyone is being encouraged to reach out, human resources at santafenm.gov if there is a situation in which they do not feel comfortable. So that has been spread wide and unclear. We can always do more and always do better. But nobody should feel unsafe. I will say, there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of confusion. One of the things that I think is really important, we've been trying to communicate with employees is, the question is, well, did this person test positive in my building or my workspace? And the answer, we have to maintain, of course, strict privacy protections. The answer is you should, given the amount of community spread we have right now, anyone that you come into contact with, you should be acting as if they could be COVID positive. That's why we have all our you wear your mask, you stay 6 feet apart. And so that's really where, and it's hard, and you get in your truck and you put on your mask and then you're out. And so it's a constant conversation. But I think that's really where we're really trying to focus is at this point with that level of community spread. It doesn't matter if they were in your building or not. That's how you have to treat it. But open always to more suggestions. If you're hearing things that aren't tracking, always please raise. I have to once again give a shout out to our HR team. They are a mini contact tracing operation and have done remarkable work and kept our employees safe, because when there is a positive case, then they go through and determine who's been in close contact and who hasn't. And it's a very complicated and arduous task for our small team. So kudos to them, and I really appreciate you raising it and acknowledging the seriousness with which we're doing this and treating and asking our employees to take it as well.
I appreciate that. And, I have one more thing to add, and I guess I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I have communication that instructs employees not to email me when there's nothing that is being enforced in their department. They've let me know, and not because I've asked them to, but then as a repercussion, they receive emails not to communicate with me. So, and I have evidence of that, but it's kind of, I can understand, but my message is that I really think we need to be doing everything we can in our organization to to enforce compliance. And I'm not sure how we do that except to keep it in the mind's eye. But it is very serious, and that's the important thing is to get compliance and to make sure that they understand that this, what could happen, what are the damages that could happen. And so I guess that's my point. This is getting really, really serious. And now, we have an opportunity to go green. And so I think, our population in the city is part of that. And so I want to get to green. So if we can help do that, that would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Vihel-Coppler, I apologize. This is why I shouldn't do things on the fly. You received 5 emails yesterday, not 3. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I was going to go count them, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So want to acknowledge for the record, there were 5 cases yesterday. And again, underscoring, even in the midst of these very, serious lockdowns, this is still happening. So there were 5 yesterday, and I will work to get you the total number before the end of the day.
Okay, well, I'm satisfied with that, but because I'm worried about the emails. But yeah, if you have a general report, I wouldn't want to create any extra, but I think it's good to know what we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Garcia, you were next, and then Councilor Cassett Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on the point before of emails, I have 6 emails I received yesterday. So I don't know, one of those is doubled up, but I definitely have 6 emails notifying us of the cases. My question is, and I guess maybe, I don't know who would answer this, is what's changed from the last proclamation or resolution? I don't see a memo saying there was any additions or anything like that. So can I get clarification on what we changed in regards to this, or is it just a renewal of what we passed last time?
City Attorney, do you want, I think you had a series of bullet points. Maybe you can quickly identify where we adjusted the emergency resolution.
Yes, and Councilor Garcia, you should have gotten this in the email I sent out with the bullets. The primary changes are that we are now expressly going to be requiring members of the public to answer our screening questions before they enter a city building. And we are directing our employees to not provide services to members of the public who are not wearing facial coverings, either in city buildings or out, if we're doing inspections, that type of thing, also on properties. So that's a change. We incorporated some of the standalone orders that had applied to grocery stores and our parks. So those are now actually expressly stated in the proclamation as well. And then, let me pull up. Oh, yes. And then basically directing that employees will participate in testing should the city implement any sort of systematic across the board city employee testing. So that will require participation. We have not started something like that, but it's something we might be able to do. And if we do it, we are requiring employees to participate.
Okay, great. Thank you, Aaron, for that clarification. I would recommend next time to have the bullets in Prime Gov, just because the public doesn't get the emails that we do. And it's easier for them to easily identify what's changed with this. I guess a follow-up to the information you shared in the bullets is, why are we not implementing the same measures with our staff that we are with the public? Because I know if I was a team member, if I was a city employee going in every day, I would hope that, and I would have the confidence that my colleague has been tested and we're all safe. Because right now we're just taking it, is it pretty much on the honor system, or how is that working?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, I'm not sure I understood what
So from your, in the bullets, you had said there's going to be certain screening done for the public that's going to enter the building, correct? So my question is that same protocol and measures being taken for staff?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, yes, we've had that in place for staff for a few months now. So now we're going to require the same thing that we are required of staff of the public as well.
Okay, fantastic. I just want to make sure that we're setting up, a bubble for City Hall, so to speak, that when you're in there, everybody's at least been tested or screened, that they're safe according to what can be measured, so to speak, because we know that there are asymptomatic carriers where it's not identified whether it's by a fever or any other symptoms. So with that, I just want to ensure that we're keeping everybody safe, and those means.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, just to be clear, the screening questions don't say, have you been tested? You don't have to have been tested recently, but if you have been exposed, you're not supposed to come into a building. Or if you're awaiting test results, you're not supposed to come into a building. Or if you have any symptoms, you're not supposed to come into a building. So if you're asymptomatic and you've had no exposure and you have no reason to be quarantining, there wouldn't be any reason to not enter a building, and you would not be required to be tested at this point, just to be clear.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is there are, if we're having 100 cases a day, and that's been going on for at least the last week and a half, right? At least 10 days. So there's probably over 1,000 people that are COVID positive in the city. And how many of those folks were asymptomatic that got tested because their family member got sick and they ultimately got tested? The point I was trying to make is that ultimately screening is a good test, a good measure to get folks in the building, but it's not going to determine somebody is COVID negative. And so I guess the point I was trying to make is we got to ensure that even though we're setting all these protocols and measures in place, it's not 100% guarantee that everybody in the building is COVID negative. And we want to, I guess, make that clear to folks and just to the public. We want to ensure that everybody is, we're taking the appropriate measures to keep everybody safe, which means wearing masks, washing your hands, doing everything you need to be doing, because once you enter this so-called bubble, doesn't mean everybody in that bubble is COVID negative. And I don't want to set that false impression either within our team members or the public, because I think that's sometimes a false impression that the community gets, because they feel, oh, well, I don't have any symptoms, I'm fine, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And they'll unfortunately pass it on to somebody who will have the symptoms, who ultimately might succumb to the virus. And we want to be doing everything we can to keep people safe. So I guess that's where the point I was trying to make is I want to just make sure the city staff is being checked, the public is being checked, and everybody knows that even with those measures, doesn't stop and ensure that you're guaranteed from the virus. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I had.
Thank you. Councilor Cassett Sanchez and then Councilor Romero Worth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I had also some questions about the screenings for coming into City Hall. Have we looked at temperature taking at all? Especially with members of the public coming in? I know it'd be a little harder with staff, but.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Cassett Sanchez, in places where I think the personnel are able to do that, we are, like in municipal court. But I think in most places we do not have staff available to do that. But staff has been given the suggestion that if they're able to, they're encouraged to do that. But I think in most places we don't have the staff available to do that.
Okay, thank you. I know that part of this is just financing, that there have been some places where they set up, you put your forehead there, it screens it automatically, pops it on. Have we looked at any of those potential options for places where people are entering into buildings?
City Manager, I'm not aware of us exploring that technology at this time.
Okay, I would be interested if we could explore that. I know, again, it's dollars, but again, when we are looking at how do we decrease the spread, City Manager, sorry, I see you wanted to speak. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Cassett Sanchez, in areas, it was one of the tactics early on that I think people thought was really important. The literature right now around it is actually that it is not an important technique because it creates, again, a false sense of security. Just a fever is not one of the only symptoms. I do know the fire department is actively using them, and our rec centers are actively using them. So where we've got a lot of interaction, they are being used. But again, remember, we are in, like for City Hall, for example, we are closed. It is only by appointment only. So right now, the questionnaire is deemed the most important. So I don't want to say it's an additive step, but the language around it right now is not that it is not a be all technique. So for what that's worth.
Right. Yes, I would absolutely agree. It's not a be all technique. It's more pieces of information as we are moving forward with navigating this. The other piece, and Councilor Garcia touched on it briefly, when people are coming in I know with our staff, they're supposed to be answering the COVID questions every day. We are hoping that they are being honest and, really taking it seriously. When people do have appointments, are the staff that they're seeing, are they confirming that they have said no to the questionnaire, that they have seen the questionnaire? I know it's possible that they could miss it, they could scan over it, or perhaps if nobody's asking them, they're willing to move aside, whereas usually if somebody asks you a direct question, it's a little bit harder to pass over it. So is our staff that's interacting with the public directed to specifically confirm that those questions have been answered and they are in fact screened and able to enter the building?
Mayor Weber, Counselor, we are just now implementing this.
Okay, so it sounds like we're still working out those processes. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mayor Weber, Counselor, that's correct.
I think that it would be of use to just have that quick added step of a confirmation, just so that we can make sure that they have in fact seen the questions as well. It's possible that people miss things if they're not paying attention. So if nothing else, just to confirm that they have seen it. And then last question, I wanted to follow up on some of Councilor Vihil-Coppler's questioning regarding when we receive emails about individuals who have tested positive for COVID. Are we only receiving emails if individuals have been within a city facility, or do we also receive emails if it is a member of our staff who's been working completely at home and they haven't come into a city facility as well?
Jarrell, do you know the, yeah, go ahead.
Counselor Casat-Sanchez, these notifications are for any city employee who has tested positive. So that would include people who are home. They would then just have no close contacts. So the contact tracing piece of it has much less impact.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I think that's important also for us as we are trying to make decisions to differentiate between when we do get those reports, because it does obviously change our we want to make sure that we're focusing where there's risk. And if somebody's been at home and they got it from community spread as opposed to a potential having received it from being in a city building, I feel that those are two very different things. So when we do get the reports, I would be interested to hear that information as we move forward making those decisions.
And Mayor Weber, Counselor, in the most recent notices, I think HR has been trying to include that type of information. So they've said the last date that employee has been in a city facility. And so some of the dates in yesterday's were recent and some were quite a while ago. So you can at least make a little bit of a distinction between each of those. And it also says whether or not they had close contacts. Some of them didn't have any close contacts.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's why I asked, because the only ones that I had seen had been ones that had said that they had been in a city facility sometime in the last, I think October may have been the earliest one. So I was just curious if it was going to be anybody in the city that tests positive or just individuals who at some point had been in a city facility. But thank you for that. I don't believe I have any further questions at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Romero-Worth and then Councilor Garcia again.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple of quick points as long as we're in an extended conversation about this. I think important for the public to understand the implications. First of all, just to, I think, underscore what Councilor Garcia said, given that there's community spread and given the asymptomatic nature of this virus, there are really no guarantees that you're creating a bubble that's impenetrable. So there's that. And then I also want to just make sure everybody understands that while we're getting notices of people who have tested positive in our city team, so those people obviously are now sidelined, but then anybody that they've been in close contact with is also sidelined, I believe, and has to quarantine as a precautionary measure, even though they may not be positive. So there is a greater impact to our city team than just the people who are testing positive, and that may have implications down the road, particularly as we know. All the headlines, all the news is reporting that this is going to get worse before we get better, that we're still, not at the light at the end of the tunnel, even though there's a lot of positive news about vaccines and that kind of thing. And so I just think it's an important point to make and an important understanding for people to have about our city team and and potentially our ability to provide services as we move forward through this winter period. So thank you, Mayor. That's all I had.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Garcia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to add one quick thing. As we begin to implement testing of community members entering public buildings, I would highly recommend we do as the restaurant industry does is take names, numbers, emails of folks, because if there potentially happens to be a person that is infected and goes to one of our facilities, we want to ensure we can quickly inform those folks. I think that's what would help minimize the spread, because so many of our community members come into contact with somebody and they don't know it, then they just go on living their life as normal and unfortunately spread it to their family. I think that's how a lot of these cases now are impacting our community. And if we can take that kind of note out of the restaurant industry and somehow implement that into our system, I think that would really be helpful. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Good addition. Councilor Rivera?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, is our police department stepping up enforcement of our own orders? And do the public call 911 if they notice something going on, or is there a separate number that has been set aside specifically for COVID-19 reports, I guess?
Jarrell, do you know about sightings of people non-compliant?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, yes, the public is being asked to call the non-emergency number that gets routed through the RECC, and then our police will be dispatched. We've gone through this in a couple of cases, notifications like at grocery stores and otherwise. So that is the protocol. It is, I think it's working reasonably well. There have been instances where things weren't, and then there were clarifications made, but the public is being asked to call the non-emergency number, so not 911.
And Ms. McSherry, are the police department allowed to give violations or citations?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Rivera, the police can both enforce the state and local ordinance, yes.
Both, okay. And
local orders, yes.
And do they go to magistrate court or municipal court?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Rivera, if they're enforcing the local order, it would go to municipal court. If they're enforcing the state order, it would go to magistrate court.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Romero Worth.
Sorry, Mayor. Just want to be clear. We are not implementing testing in our facilities. We are implementing screenings. So we are asking people questions to help isolate whether they're safe or not to enter the buildings. And that's an important distinction, that language. So I just want to be clear about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Casas Sanchez, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, we have been collecting the names and numbers of people, right? We already have that log in place and we've had it in place for some months now. Is that correct?
Jarrell?
Mayor, Councilor Casas Sanchez, that is correct.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Thank you.
Councilor Vigil Koppler.
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to the police issuing citations or being called, I know we have received communication from the public that says that these kinds of calls are not high priority. And so I see the chief is on the line. So I'd like to hear from him about what kind of priority these calls are given.
Chief Padilla, can you speak to the police response when there is a request for somebody to on your team to look into a violation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, councilors, thank you. Good afternoon. Yes, it is a low priority. Unfortunately, there's no immediately threat to someone's life. It's not an accident with injuries, a domestic violence situation in place. So it just called in. We could get a report that someone's walking on the side of the street or at a local park right now, not wearing a face covering or a mask. That call would go into the queue. And then if an officer is readily available right then and there in that area or B area, they could be dispatched. But yes, to be open and honest, and I think you guys all acknowledge that that call for service could pen for 30 minutes or 3 hours. It just depends on how many other higher priority calls are ahead of that. And then through the municipal ordinance, to date, we have issued out a total of 12 citations through the local ordinance. And then obviously our officers are carrying the hand sanitizer, they're carrying additional face coverings. So if they do encounter someone or a family and they say, hey, do you have a face coverings, or we see that you're not wearing them, what's the deal here? They can give them a face covering.
Chief, I have one more question. If there's a call and it has to deal with enforcing the state's order, do you still take those calls, or do you have jurisdiction, or how does that work?
Yes, through the public health order, if we receive a complaint that a business is over capacity, we can go and we can meet with the greeters. Like say, we'll use a grocery store as an example. We get those on a regular basis. Someone can say, hey, look, I was at the grocery store and I believe they were over capacity, or based upon my own head count, they were over capacity. Same thing there. That call could pen for 30 minutes or 3 hours. So when that officer or supervisor is available, they respond to that location and they say, hey, look, approximately around noon today, when a customer was in your location, there was a complaint that you guys were over capacity. And I'm sure you all have been to a store locally with technology. They're using smart devices to, as someone walks in the front door and then as another 1 or 2 people exit the other door. That's how they're keeping track of that. I don't know if there's an official log or if there's any data that they can backtrack, but it's all in the integrity honest system. If they say, hey, look, dear officer, dear sergeant, hey, look, during that time frame, hey, look, this is the technology that we're doing. Or if that officer just by coincidence happens to be right then and there and say, hey, look, we just received this call or concern, so here I am. And they say, hey, look, here's our current capacity. We'll use the rule there, and we're actually at 62 people and our max is at 75.
Okay, thank you. So you do have jurisdiction to enforce the state order.
That is
and I suppose in the county, then the sheriffs would be the ones that would report.
That's correct. If it's call out in the county, the sheriff's department or state police are handling those. But right now, someone calls, complains that a grocery store's over capacity, or during the most recent public health order that there's no indoor dining at all. If we were to receive a complaint that there was indoor dining happening, then at that point, we would cite them through or into magistrate court following the governor's public health order.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I really appreciate the thoroughness of this discussion, because I do think we all take the situation of COVID and the spread that we're experiencing right now extremely seriously. And it certainly starts with our own city employees. If you look at the way our CARES Act money is being spent, there is probably the second or third largest amount is being devoted to safety measures within our own facilities and for our own employees. We've bought foggers, we've installed plastic separation devices, we've put in hand sanitizer, we've installed no-touch wash basins for our employees. A lot of this is being done through Regina Wheeler's team, and we ought to give them a really a similar amount of thank you as we did for Kira Ochoa with her work for the community at large, because it's one and the same. The people who work for us are our community members, and we want them to stay safe and healthy both on the job and when they go home. So we're making a significant effort to use technology and safety measures to make sure that our employees are really kept safe and healthy. I just actually had an hour-long discussion with leaders at from AFSCME about ways we can collaborate to get the message out that we all care equally. You know, it's labor and management agree on one thing, and that is everybody should stay safe and healthy. And it's not a matter of which side of the bargaining table you are on. It's a matter of we're all on the same side of the COVID-19 bend the curve table. So there's a great deal of concern and collaboration to make sure that our folks are safe and that we extend that outward in every interaction with the public. Obviously, we are at a very, very serious point. The public health experts that I listen to and see on TV or in conference of mayors briefings all indicate, as the city manager said, and I think we all agree, that between where we are now and the arrival of vaccines, we need to be bending the curve. We need to be vigilant and disciplined and focused, whether it's wearing a mask or just staying home if you don't need to make a trip. If you do need to go out, use hand sanitizer, practice social distancing. Don't get into small spaces where your close contact enhances the chance of the spread of COVID-19. And right now, we're a red county, and we should do everything we can to become first a yellow and then a green county as quickly and as effectively as we possibly can. We have it within our power as individuals and as groups to make that happen. And it really is upon all of us and each of us to carry that message in our community, because this is the moment of truth for bending the curve on COVID-19. And we just paid our respects to the Holmes family. That was a COVID-related death. And we all know it shouldn't have happened. We wish it hadn't happened. But it's a reminder that this disease doesn't discriminate. It takes people from all walks of life and from all parts of our community. So vigilance and discipline and focus is really important. Having the right tools like hand sanitizer and masks is important. Having the right communication and the right messaging is important. And it is the single largest issue on all of our agendas right now. It is our job right now, is to bend the curve, keep our people safe, and do everything in our power to get through to the arrival of the vaccine, which will begin to really change our way of living and hopefully restore us to health and safety. But till then, it's in our own hands. Other comments or statements at this time? If not, I'm sorry, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just close the loop, I had promised an accurate number. I wanted to let the governing body know that the city of Santa Fe currently has 18 active COVID cases. That includes the 6 that were notified to all city employees yesterday.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? If not, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll on this resolution?
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Melworth,
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Beta,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilor Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 8 is communications from the governing body. Councilor Vihel Coppler, you're in the upper left-hand corner of my screen. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to extend a big thank you to the city employees who hung the lights and had the plaza get real nice and pretty. And I know that's not easy. I barely can decorate my Christmas tree. And so it's amazing the kinds of things they can do. And so that was really wonderful. Thanks to Christine Mahelsick and Joe Abeta for the putting together the show that night, the clips of our holiday memories or whatever they were. And then thanks to Keswava Radio for the nice added coolness of the music and such. And whoever videotaped it, I'm not sure. But to all the people involved, I did watch it. I didn't go down there, but I think it was wonderful. And I got a bunch of texts that night. So I think that's probably a testimonial, as well as I think I heard Joe Abeta saying earlier there were like 6,000. No, I don't remember how many views he said. A lot, probably more than that. So that's it. Great. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera?
Same, Mayor, I won't take too much time, but the city crews that do the lighting on the plaza, every year they outdo themselves, and this year's no different. So it just amazes me how much effort they put in and how beautiful it is at the day that they light it up. So it was no different. So appreciate it to all the city staff that was involved and to all the residents that drove by that night. We've been talking about driving by the plaza and how important it is, and this was a night where they were able to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Mayor-Worth?
I don't have anything except thank you to city employees for all you're doing in difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Lindell?
Just the same, thanks to everybody. The plaza looks fantastic. It always does. It's pretty thrilling to drive by there at night. So everybody stay safe and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Abeyta?
Same thing, Mayor. Thank you to all the city employees. The tree lighting was great. We watched it on our government channel, so that was pretty neat. And I also want to shout out to Kira Ochoa. I've received a lot of positive feedback from nonprofits that we work with, and the Connect program, the way they set that up before we even got into this COVID thing, it really made our ability to expedite and get these funds out a reality. And so a big shout out to her and her staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Villarreal?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also want to give a shout out to the staff for making our plaza magical again. And Joe and Christine always outdo themselves. Keswave is always a great touch to be able to partner with them and even have an ability to make song requests. So that was kind of fun. And just wanted to recognize that, you know, COVID, I think in these numbers, I hear from people that really need the work, and so they will risk not saying anything because they cannot miss work and they don't want to lose a day of work, and that's hard. My mom actually got a scare with a dentist where the dental hygienist did not inform her colleagues at the office that she had been having symptoms and that she had gotten tested, and therefore my mom couldn't spend time with us for Thanksgiving because she had to quarantine because of someone else. And I don't want to be angry about that person because I always think, well, they probably need to be at work and they need to get a paycheck. And that's what's hard for me is essential workers having to go in. And I wish maybe at the state level that they're thinking about this, hazard pay or a way to support people that cannot afford to miss a day of work. So I just want to make that statement that that's weighing on me due to the fact we experienced it and people are probably experiencing that situation every day. So just take care of everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Garcia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same echoing the sentiments to our city team. You know, thank you for tirelessly working to put up the lights. I mean, it's awesome and amazing as ever. Joe, Christine, the video and production was fantastic. Thank you. And to the Keswave team, Esteban Onati. Man, I think I'm going to hire you for my next party. You guys are awesome DJs. And I'm going to have to ask Councilor Abeyta, what were they doing in that back room that were making so much noise? They're supposed to be good boys in the front room taking part in Las Posadas. And I've noticed we've got a lot of foodies within the governing body, so I can't wait till we're through these unfortunate circumstances and we can share some of those yummy meals together. And I think that's why it's important that we all take safe measures, we all wear masks, we all we all got to do our part. That's how we're going to get through this, and we all have to do our part. And there are sacrifices we have to make, and it is going to be challenging. But hey, we've got to get through this, and we'll look back and say it was challenging. But hey, we have more community members that are alive that aren't in poor health because we kept those safe distances and we kept each other safe. So everybody, please be safe. And hopefully everybody worked off their Thanksgiving turkey meals. And I know I still got a couple pounds to go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Casas Sanchez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As everyone said, thank you so much to everybody who worked on the holiday lighting. I think that it is so important that we find these ways to celebrate during these challenging times. we also watched on the city YouTube channel. We have not made it down yet. My tiny human has been refusing naps, so it's making it a little bit hard to get there in the evening, but we are very excited to get down there eventually and see them in person. I also just, again, we've talked about our city staff that is working so hard with these CARES dollars, Kira and Regina. I think we'd be remiss not to mention our finance team, because this can't be easy. All of the work that is having to go into spending these dollars and the procurements and the contracts and all these pieces. So I really want to thank our finance team, and really every department has a hand in this. I know that Rich has done a lot of work, and Eli and land use, and we really have everybody on board here. And thank you. It's a lot. It's a really heavy lift. Everyone's mentioned it, but COVID, our numbers they're extraordinary right now. What's going on is really, it's scary. You need to stay home. It's hard. I know we're all tired. I say pretty much every day that I feel like a caged animal these days because I just want to leave my house. But we need to keep going. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We do still have a while. So stay safe, stay home, take care of yourself. And by taking care of yourself, you're taking care of each other. That is the biggest piece of this, that I've said it before, whatever risk you decide is okay to take, you have also decided that our entire community takes that risk with you. And so really think hard about that. And let's do this. Let's get to green. We can. We just have to do the work. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. My friends and colleagues, very well said. And it's a holiday season, but it's not an ordinary holiday season. We have to do two things at the same time. We've got to celebrate in our hearts, and we've got to stay safe in our practices. I had the opportunity to listen to Dr. Murthy talk this afternoon. He's President-elect Biden's advisor on COVID, and he went through the science, he went through the process of where we are with the vaccine, but he ended up in a very powerful emotional place. And I thought I would share with you my notes from his final comments in the Conference of Mayors Zoom call. He said, "Pandemics are extraordinarily stressful. And in any time when there's a pandemic or a great disease, we are all in greater need than ever of mutual support. But this pandemic is really pernicious because it prevents us from making those mutual connections that give us comfort. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to locate a deep source of compassion in our hearts for each other." He pointed out that people are struggling all over the country, struggling to make ends meet, to get food on the table, to stay healthy, to stay safe. As Councilwoman Villarreal said, to balance between going to work and maybe risking getting sick, or staying home and not having that paycheck. And he said, ultimately, the most powerful medicine we have isn't the vaccine that we're waiting for, it's the power of love for each other. And so there is so much that we can do for each other, to support each other, that goes beyond what government can do. It's in neighborhoods, it's in families, it's in nonprofits, and in the faith community. It's in our frontline workers, our docs and nurses. They are giving support far beyond anything that we do in the city of Santa Fe with our government. We'll do our best, but ultimately it is a community effort that will stop the spread of COVID-19. And so please, everybody, do your part. Bring love to each other, bring compassion, patience in this season, this holiday season. Remember the gift of love and the gift of caring. It is what will get us through this if we each do our part. We have a vaccine in the works, but it won't be here for a few months still. And then it has to be distributed and get into people's arms. So our job is to build the bridge from where we are now to the time when that arrives. And we only do that by doing the right thing for our own ourselves, our own families, and for the whole community. I think that's the message of this special meeting. Thank you, everybody. There's a task force coming up, so we'll let you guys get to your next gathering. Thank you, everybody, for a very productive and thoughtful meeting. It's 5:17 and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.